to Chasing Purpose, heard right here on the Bridge 99 FM and in the New York tri-state area on Irie Jam Radio. Today, I'm just going to jump right into our mindset message because we have, it's going to be a lengthy discussion, but a good one and a timely one. So I encourage you guys to have your pen, your paper, your journal, water, wine, whatever it is that floats your boat, because we're talking today about taking off the mask or wearing a mask or unlayering before we take off the mask. So we'll get right into it. A form of a mask definition is a form of disguise or concealment usually worn over or in front of the face to hide the identity of a person and by its own features to establish another being. Can we all agree that we are wearing or have at some point put on a mask? Over our lifetime, life experiences would have had us not only put on a mask, but add layers to that proverbial mask. I myself, at the young age of 9, was sexually assaulted by a person trusted by my family to tutor me. That would have been the first time I remember putting on a mask. Now, I had no idea why this was happening to me in my home nonetheless, but I knew, my 9-year-old self did not feel I could have expressed or even say anything in my household, a Caribbean household, about someone that, especially an elder, that people would have saw, my parents would have trusted for me to go tell them, say, well, this guy is doing whatever it is that he's doing. So I had to hide. That was the first time I put on a mask. So I want to ask Bridge Nation, my Chasing Purpose audience, when was the first time, do some introspection. When was the first time you put on a mask? Or do you even realize that you have put on a mask? And once that mask has been put on over time in the different life circumstances, again, you add layers and you don't even know it. So we're going to explore some of these masks and really have a conversation. We're continuing to celebrate our men, as Saturday was International Men's Day. And I'm excited because the person that's sitting in studio with me is no stranger to Chasing Purpose, no stranger to the Bridge family. He is actually family. I want to shout out to Kiki Thumbs, wherever she is. Because she had no idea when she said, Cynthia, you need to have him on the show, what she was doing, the seed that she was planting, right? So let's get right into it. In 2013, our guest found the key to unlocking his potential, and since then, he's been on a mission to share that key with others. Jeffrey Azan has taken all he's learned from his years in business, schooling, martial arts, and Toastmasters International to produce talks, workshops, and coaching strategies that help people and organizations maximize their potential. This includes the publishing of his first book, Self-Discussions, Weekly Lessons from Life, in partnership with the Writer's Mechanic, a company he helped coach into inception. This mission has granted Jeffrey the opportunity to share his thoughts and teachings in a number of live and digital settings, including Jamaica's most prominent TV interview profile with the late Ian Boyne. All of Jeffrey's teachings stem from a simple philosophy: change your game, change your life. Mr. Azan. And that was just the first book, because there's another book. Yeah, there's another book. First of all, welcome back to Chasing Purpose.
Thank you.
The new format, because you were on the old format twice. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. So we are talking about masking, Jeffrey.
Yes.
And we're just going to go through some, and I want your ideas or your opinion on a few of these. Mm-hmm. The martyr or victim mask does not accept blame to protect their self-esteem. Instead, if you are a loved one, uses this mask, you may blame things in the outside world for your own problems and failures as ways to protect your self-esteem. What do you think about that one?
I think it's a very real one. I think it's one that many of us wear. The victim one in particular, it is much easier to blame the outside circumstances for our current situation. So it's very And I'd almost say it is the most worn mask of any masks out there, to say I am where I am, not because of what I did, but because of the situation I was born into, or because of what this person did to me, or the government, the economy, the political system, and the list goes on and on. So it's really mankind's way of shifting blame more than anything else.
Again, so we're going to be breaking down mask and mask wearing. And Bridge Nation, I'm just going to ask, as you listen, just kind of think, do some introspection. Do you have a mask on now? Do you even realize that you have the mask on? And what we're trying to do is unlayer and be our authentic selves, right? So the next one is the bully mask. If you feel self-doubt or have been abused, you may turn to bullying as a way to keep people away. This may take the form of acting out physically, picking fun of others, or coercing others to accept your opinion to overcompensate for their poor self-esteem.
That's unfortunately a mask that I have worn.
Nobody's immune, I don't think.
Yeah, I definitely wore that mask, especially in high school, being the bigger bodied individual, and also coming from a family where being loud, being strong, being the head honcho and the top dog was important. So that kind of interpreted itself that I needed to exert my presence over others. And high school, in that journey of trying to figure out myself, I definitely wore the bully mask for quite some time. In
that journey, I think that one of the things that I'm taking away from that is in that journey of finding myself, right? So in high school, that's really where you're just kind of figuring out, well, what lane am I going to play? Who am I going to be? Am I going to please mommy? Am I going to please myself? Am I pleasing the teachers? So that sounds about right. Sounds about right. The humor mask. I think I may wear this a lot. People may use humor to prevent getting laughed at by others or hide feelings of sadness. After all, no one can laugh at you if you're already laughing at yourself. And others also won't know how you really feel if you're hiding your pain with humor. I've worn that mask. And I can't say that sometimes I still do wear that mask. Because, life is lifing. Life is happening. Life is lifing. What do you think about that?
No, definitely. I'm a big advocate of laughing at yourself first before giving others an opportunity. It helps to deal with the embarrassment. It helps to deal with the feeling of failure more than anything else. Because if I can flip this into a source of entertainment before it becomes a source of embarrassment, then I still have control of the situation. So definitely wear the humor mask from time to time.
The overachieving mask. If you are wearing the overachieving mask, you may strive for perfection. Anyone using this mask might hope to gain acceptance and praise for doing things perfectly, if that's a thing. In this case, self-esteem relies too heavily on being perfect, which means you might internalize any mistake. The need for perfection can also cause a constant state of anxiety, which
I would say I don't think I've worn the overachiever mask as much, because I instead of going for the overachiever, I quicker to go for the humor mask. So I very early realized I couldn't do anything perfect. For example, coming back to that high school situation, right? I couldn't get an A, so I stopped trying. So if I don't try and I get a C, it's whatever. But if I tried and didn't get the A, then it was a problem. So I'd put on the humor mask to say, listen, I got a C and I never even studied, so moving right along in life.
The next one is the people-pleasing mask. If you wear a people-pleasing mask, your self-esteem depends on the acceptance from others. You may often go out of your way to make sure other people around you are happy. Making others happy gives you a sense of self-worth. You may live the extra anxiety related to making sure you're making others around you happy. I think there's a lot of people that are out here pleasing others. Right? I can't say that I was immune to or haven't donned that mask because I just who I am. I want to make sure that persons around me are happy or that they feel good when they're in my space. I'm not sure that it's not for low self-esteem really though, but that's something that I know that I do. I aim to please people. Yeah. So that's where we are. Again, we're talking about unmasking, unlayering. And Bridge Nation, do you even realize that you're wearing a mask? As we went through those few masks, and there's a whole heap more. But we're talking about just kind of removing those masks and being your authentic self. And what does that look like? We talk about authenticity a lot here on the show, and showing up for yourself, and being yourself first. So I'm gonna ask you,
Right.
when do you think you started becoming your authentic self?
That's a tough question to answer, because first step in figuring out your authentic self is, what does that even look like? So you kind of have to start with that journey. And as I've been using as an example, high school is a big discovery period for everybody,
Absolutely.
trying to figure out what is that
Absolutely.
authentic self. And in that journey, you end up with some people finding that authentic self and some people really owning a mask. And so you end up with a lot of cliques, and that's why you have that clique mentality in high school. So I can't say that I figured out who I was in high school. For me, the closest I can say to figuring out my authentic self took me until about that 25, as we've spoken in the past. That was my aha moment, where somebody saw something in me that was always there, that was something I always did, but I didn't think it was special. I didn't think it was worth something. I didn't even think it was me. So when they shined a light on it, that was the first time I got a peek into who I believed I really was. So probably took me until 25 to start the journey of being my authentic self.
And the 25 to that journey, and along that way, and it was somebody that kind of said, "Hey,
they're like, this is you."
This is you, and then you stepped into that. From a gender perspective, do you think that men know that they wear masks? I know you, because I know who you are.
Right.
But the average man out there, do you believe that they're?
Well, we come to the question, what is a man? That's like the hot topic question these days, about what is a man and what is a woman. I can't say that I am a student of Jordan Peterson, but he's definitely one of the people making the most noise about defining what is a man. Love him or hate him, Andrew Tate is having a lot of the conversations around the same thing as well. Joe Rogan for years has been spouting it. And, everybody is trying to define it outside of genitalia. And I'm not even going to go down the genitals and the chromosome conversation. But if we take that out, it's really hard to define what is a man, because there was a time we would define via roles. And those roles, in a lot of sense, I would, pre the modern era, were heavily determined by our physical attributes. So a man's role was determined by the physical attribute that on average he was going to be bigger and stronger than a woman. So his roles were farmer, worker, warrior, protector, while a woman, the most defining characteristic back then was the ability to give birth and nurture and have life and all of that. And so roles were a big definition of who you were. Now, in this modern era, where you have stay-at-home dads who are the caregivers and the house cleaners, and you have the career-driven women who are the breadwinners, you have the single female moms who are both the mom and the career and the achiever, and they're an excellent example of what it means to be a superwoman. And you have men who fit the category as well. So the line has been really blurred if we're going to use roles as the identifier. So what is a man is going to be a tough question for anybody to answer, but I think that is the source of why most men wear masks, because they're putting on the mask of what they believe a man is supposed to be.
What they're taught,
what they're taught, and what society has taught. So in many ways, I think the biggest challenge for men, and you hear it all the time, or used to hear it all the time. Men don't cry, men don't have emotions. You bottle that up, you push it down, you drink it away, whatever the case might be. And now there's a conversation vulnerability, about opening up, about the fact that your emotions are real, that your emotions are a big part of you. So if we're not supposed to bottle it up, we're not supposed to push it down, we're supposed to be vulnerable, does that then eradicate a little bit more of what the traditional sense of what a man is? I think we are sitting in a transitional period of society where what we are as individuals is going to be challenged in an immense way. And it's a model that even in my own work in trying to teach personal development and professional development, I've been struggling to answer that question. What are we as an individual? What are we? And, you know, I have my own answers. I think that we are, first and foremost, we are a being. And a being is made up of a physical entity, a mental entity, an emotional entity, and a spiritual one. And spiritual in the sense of connection, not spiritual in the sense of this religion versus that. I think we are, just as much as we are a being, we are a product of growth.
Yes,
our growth is a huge determining factor of what we are, and growth can be defined as your education, your experiences, your exposures. I think we are also a huge part of what we leave in this world. What we touch, what we do, what we contribute, the legacy we leave. It is our fingerprint on the world, and it is just as much a part of us as, you know, the 10 fingers on my hand.
Absolutely.
And then I think the last thing that really defines us, even though a lot of people may disagree, is the things that we amass and distribute. So if I amass wealth and then I distribute it through, say, helping to fund the library services of Jamaica, or I develop programs and foundations that help school children, that product, project, idea, initiative is just as much a part of me as I said, the nose on my face. So there's a lot of elements that make us up, and it's really trying to define what are those elements of the individual that's going to help us figure out who we are. But how many of us are really doing that introspective work?
A question. How many of us are really doing that work? I'm going to segue really quickly because you touched on vulnerability. And for us here on the show, vulnerability, we see it as a strength. We believe that we need to be leaning into our vulnerability, sharing our vulnerability, growing through our vulnerability. What is your take on that? Knowing how you grew up, whatever, you know, mommy and daddy taught you growing up as far as vulnerability, where are you? What's your stance on that now?
Oh, I was definitely the hide everything. I was definitely the push the emotions down, bottle it up, drink it away mentality. But what I've come to learn in my growth and development is that vulnerability is the only true way to connect. And it goes even to a deeper principle of psychology where they talk about the id versus the super ego. That the id is our primal self, the id is our real self, and then the super ego is the societal form, the mask that we put on for society. Vulnerability for me is taking down some of the super ego to get in touch with the id. And when I can take down some of my walls and you can take down some of your walls, and both of our ids are exposed, that's where we have genuine connection. And anybody who is in that space who has been fortunate enough to experience genuine connection, they'll tell you that's where the magic happens. That's where ideas that you could never fathom before start coming to life. Projects you couldn't imagine doing start happening. And so vulnerability for me is the gateway to connection, and connection is a springboard to phenomenalness.
And he's not talking just to talk. Let me just tell you, Bridge guys from Bridge Nation and I Jam this. Jeffrey and I have we have a relationship. We're friends, right? And we both have had to, because of the work that we do in the space that we do it, we have had to be vulnerable with each other and had to really grow through whatever that was. And it's not easy work. Jeffrey could tell you, like, he wants to wring my neck half, and vice versa.
And vice versa.
But it's important. It's very, very important work to reach that connectedness in whatever relationship. This is a professional relationship, but you know, in your personal relationships also, you know, especially as you grow, and in all phases. It's not just in the beginning phase, but in the mid and in the latter. You also want to make sure that you are being vulnerable, because that's where, as Jeffrey said, the connectedness comes. Do you think men have more difficulty revealing their true selves than women?
I think these days they do. I think, and I'm no historian to mark it, but I think that there has been a steady trending progress of female empowerment, probably starting from as far back as the movement for the woman's right to vote. I think there's been a steady trend in that direction of female empowerment. And with that female empowerment, there's been I would say, media war on the villainizing of a lot of men. Now, are there garbage men out there? Absolutely. Are there garbage women out there? Absolutely. So, unfortunately, very often, the worst of the bunch are very often the loudest of the bunch, and so they represent the bunch in many situations. So there are great guys, there are great women, there are horrible men, and there are horrible women.
Facts.
But I think what the media has done is portray that this almost argument, and I do blame media in many senses, this almost argument of female superiority, that a woman can give birth, she can take care of the family while achieving a career, while maintaining a home, while, you know, contributing to the community. All a man does is work, if he even does that. And I think we've also suffered because of, well, I can't really speak specifically to the root of it, but this idea of a man's worth being how much women him have. You know, dancehall for a long time and hip hop attributed a man's worth to the number of women he had, which I think is one of the many seeds that eroded the family, because we are no longer promoting, pushing, and, you know, demonstrating that, you know, one man, one woman, build a family, build a home. So I think, yes, men have a harder time being honest and being vulnerable, because even in a sense, like, we can come back to the topic of vulnerability. If you try to be vulnerable with your partner, but your partner has never been taught or shown how to deal with a man being vulnerable, very often that vulnerability is weaponized against you. So I come and I say, you know, boy, I'm having a hard time at work. And then later down, a month later, you're having an argument, and you get, all you ever do is complain about how hard your work is. That tells me, you know what, I'm going to stop telling you about my work. And then I know I'm taught to wear a mask at home instead of being vulnerable, because I clearly can't be vulnerable. If not, it's going to be used against me. And I think many men feel that way, that if I am vulnerable, it will be weaponized against me.
And that's true. That females out there, Jeffrey's calling us out. We have to recognize if that's something that we are doing, and we may not be doing it intentionally.
Absolutely, but you just don't know. You've never been taught how to deal with a man being vulnerable.
Exactly. For our young boys growing up, right? How important is it that we are teaching them to be vulnerable? Not this, no, if you're crying, stop crying, boy, get up on man up. How important is it that we're saying no? Allow yourself to feel the emotion. Allow yourself to just to feel whatever it is. Let it pass through you. But we need to keep going.
I think it's, you know, my dad, and, you know, for all the history and stories there are about the relationship between me and my dad, I think the most important thing he ever taught me was his version of Ecclesiastes. You know, that there's a time to live and a time to die and a time to cry and a time to laugh. And I'm sure he added about 12 extra verses every time he told it, and it was always different. But I think that's the most important lesson, is that there's a time for everything. You know, recently we had to bury a family member, and it was a really tough time. But I watched some family members that was their time to grieve, and then later it was their time to work. Others, in the moment, it was their time to work, so that later they could find time to grieve.
Yeah.
But what a lot of us are taught is that there is no time to grieve, and that's where the error is. There is a time to grieve and there's a time to work.
Absolutely.
I think if our young men learn that, then they would be 10 times more powerful down the road. That there's a time for success and there's going to be a time for failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
that for me is the more important than just saying you should be vulnerable, but it's more a lesson of there's a time to be vulnerable and there's a time to put up the wall, and there's a time to be open and there's a time to be closed, and it's learning when is the right time for each of those things.
And we're, as I said, we're talking about unmasking. And Jeffrey, I'm going to read a quote, and I want your take on
Sure.
this. According to New York bestselling author Lewis Howes, people have two sides of themselves: their real self and their ideal self. If our selves are far apart, we feel anxious. We are afraid people aren't going to like who we really are. We are scared about being inauthentic or fake, because deep down we know we are out of alignment. On the other hand, if our selves are closer together, we have harmony.
For me, you know, I don't know if it's two. I actually think it's three. I think it's three. The Japanese talks about it where they say we all wear three masks. We have the mask for the society. We have the mask for the close friends and family. And then we have our mask, which is our true self.
Right.
And, you know, very few people, if anybody, ever gets to see that mask. And it's a tough question about when am I wearing a mask and when am I just demonstrating a different side of me? Because I think there's a part of me where I can be very aggressive if the circumstance and variables call for it. And I can be, you know, the number one pacifist in a different situation if the circumstances call for it. So
But they're both you.
are they exactly? So is one my authentic self and one my mask, and, you know, vice versa? I think what it is that when we design things, design our society, design our friend groups, design our home, design our life, the things we design turn around and design us. So you can use a cell phone as an example. The cell phone has been designed and it's been introduced into society, but the cell phone itself has begun to redesign society as to how we operate and how we interact. I think the same is true for ourselves. So, you know, I think Jim Carrey, if anybody's ever seen that interview or documentary on him, it's very interesting that Jim Carrey says the first character he ever learned to play was Jim Carrey. So he realized that there was a side to him that worked in the comedy and media space. And so he developed that character so much so that he wasn't sure when he was playing the character and when he was being himself. Hence a mask or your authentic self.
A lot of actors struggle with that also.
Indeed. And when they, especially if they are method actors who they go into the character and they become the character. And you know, if you watch a Jim Carrey documentary, that's actually what it was. He played a character and he literally was having like a multiple personality breakdown where he wasn't sure when he was a character versus when he was Jim Carrey versus when he was himself. I think that has, for me, was the biggest eye opener to how many of us exist. I wear a mask, you know, or maybe I wear a particular mask when I'm with you and my professional environment, and I wear a mask when I'm with my family as to who they want me to be, and I wear a mask when I'm with my significant other and who she wants me to be. And I just want, I guess it's a people-pleasing mask. I want people to like the version of Jeffrey they're getting. So the question is, for me, is that, and we come back to, I guess, where we started, what's my authentic self? So I really had to spend some time and thinking about what are the things that I would almost say they don't matter to anybody else, but they matter to me. That is a true indicator of a part of my authentic self. What things do I contribute to and take part in that bring me joy and fulfillment and excitement, irrespective of who's there? That was another part of my authentic self. And as I slowly discovered the parts of my authentic self, I began realizing when I was wearing a mask and when I wasn't. And I realized that there comes a point where, love me or hate me, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's when I started taking off the mask, I started feeling a lot more at peace.
Yeah.
Significantly reduced the anxiety.
Yes.
And I started, and I think this is the biggest fear most people have, is that we wear the mask to keep particular people in our life.
Yeah.
But when I took off the mask, I found different people who supported the real me.
Yeah.
That for me was the biggest, I almost want to say freedom. Is that to
and it's a different type of freedom and feeling that you get.
Exactly. So it's not even about my mask and my authentic self coming together. It's about stepping more into my authentic self.
Yes. We took a poll. I'm not sure how, but we took a poll. A purpose poll.
Okay.
It is named by Dominique. And we asked men, have you ever worn a mask? If yes, why? These are the replies. Andre says, yes, I have. We do it to belong. To get women. When you enter a space where we see that your traits aren't accepted, we put on a mask to fit into that environment. Joseph says, for our safety. Because of our insecurities, because of our motives are because our motives are not always clear, and because of our fears. Alex says the main purpose is to hide whatever insecurity we may have about ourselves. Anthony says, I don't truly believe that we mask. We just have various aspects of our personality coming to the forefront depending on our environment, which kind of speaks to what you were just saying. What are your take on these responses?
I'm not sure if I totally agree with the last one, Anthony, that we don't wear masks.
We all do. Whether we want to admit it or not, or even know.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people they don't know.
You don't know. But I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and they were saying, hey, we should go to this party. And it was a big issue for me because who Jeffrey was when he went to a party is not who Jeffrey is today. When younger Jeffrey, went to a party, it was in pursuit of women.
Right.
It was who's available, where we're going to have fun, what's going to happen.
Right.
And, in many ways, and many men will know the phrase, I was going to the party on the hunt. That was the mission. I was hunting. I wasn't going to party.
But the Jeffrey today,
Jeffrey today is not about that.
Right.
I have a partner that madly in love with, right? So I'm very happy with her. So, like he said, let's go to the party. And my first thought was, why?
Okay, so what we can... No, Jeffrey.
But that's what I'm saying is that the Jeffrey who used to party, the mask, became so much an identity of partying.
Okay. I understand.
That I didn't even see the purpose in it. So I almost have to now reprogram myself to say, oh, if I'm going to a party, I'm going for the music.
Yes,
and the
to enjoy myself.
And enjoy myself. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing all
anyway,
along.
yes, that's
right?
Again, as you said, younger Jeffrey, younger Cynthia Shea would have been on the hunt for whatever,
right?
Back in the day. But now it's going to a party. You're going to enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
Exactly. 9 out of 10.
So we're stepping more into that authentic self. So
yes.
The authenticity of even the party and coming back to that connection. I'm now authentic Jeffrey can connect with the authentic reason of the party and have a genuinely good time.
Yes. And there, guys, when you get there, the feeling is it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, right? But it's you want to be your authentic self, the best version of you. So we're talking about, and Jeffrey's going to talk more about his book in a few. We're talking about unmasking, and we're talking about men today, men and women, not just men, but men and insecurity. Do you believe that men have lost their voice in society?
Ooh, I think it is an interesting paradigm that we're dealing with these days. Recently, I saw a comparison on all of the negative attention that Jonah Hill was receiving in Hollywood. And it was this whole dichotomy that we'll say a big-bodied woman
full figured,
a full figured woman who is putting her body on display, and we'll even say a body on display in a classy way, is typically celebrated as being brave and proud of herself, and she should own it. While Jonah Hill, a lot of attention around his story was that, oh, you're the fat guy, so that reserves you to being the funny guy. Like, that's it. There's no bravery, there's no accepting your body type. You are fat, therefore you are reserved to being funny. And he found that even the roles and opportunities that he was getting was very limited based on his size. And so it became a very interesting, double standard exploration. How many women do we know that says, I want a guy, he needs to be over 6 feet, he needs to be earning more than 6 figures, something else have to be more than 6, XYZ. But let a man say he wants a woman who doesn't have a belly. Yeah. Or that he wants a woman that is a particular size. Yeah. Or he wants a woman that is a certain thing. Yeah. And he is taken to task for it. Yep. And so, okay, so I can't speak about the type of woman that I would want in life, but I must meet a particular standard for being a man. I can't push to be the breadwinner or the provider because everybody has that opportunity now, but I'm expected to protect. There's another interesting interview, I think it's on the Wendy Williams show, where he was, I forget the guy's name, he's the star of Falcon, and he's in the whole Marvel series. Bridge Nation, if you know who I'm talking about, remind us. Yes. WhatsApp line 551-5782. But he was asked by Wendy Williams, do you think it's the woman should go and make you a sandwich? Yeah. And he said, in his own words, he said, she should make daddy a sandwich. And everybody was like, what? This is crazy. And he comes back and he says, okay, hold on, pause. If we're on the road and somebody says something disrespectful to you, you expect me to stand up and be in that space. Yeah. So I'm not supposed to protect, but you expect me to protect. Or, and the conversations go on and on. Oh, yeah. But for sure. The thing is that it really does, they're talking a lot about class in men these days. What's a sigma male? What's a alpha male? What's a bravo male? What's a omega male? Where do you fit and how do you respond? And there's this whole thing, Jordan Peterson talks about it, and I really like the concept, is that it's nice to say don't do violence. And I'm using a very particular example. He says don't do violence. But if you can't do violence, not doing violence isn't virtuous. If you can't do it, then not doing it doesn't matter. Yeah. So it's a matter of men need to be empowered, encouraged,
for sure.
Developed,
for sure.
Taught to be the violence, taught to be the powerhouse, but then also taught how to keep it under control. Yes. Taught when it is appropriate. Yes. Taught when it's right to step up in the space. Yes. And I think, unfortunately, this world tends to teach in extremes. Yes. So you either are quiet and silent or you are angry and loud. It's not that you can be both, and it's not that you can't be the one or the other at the appropriate time. And so for me, I think there are a lot of men who suffer with that, and the reasons go on and on. Lack of male figure in the life, lack of male role models these days. I think the number one meme for men that you see around the place is a clip of Fabulous saying sensational, really talking about just being a toxic male, and that's what's being celebrated. I
haven't seen that one yet.
And it just keeps going on and on. So without role models, without examples, without being taught, without the lessons, and who teaches them to speak up? Who teaches them how to speak up? I know I take it as a personal responsibility that any of the young men who I cross paths with, if they ask me, I happily mentor them, I happily work with them, I answer their questions. But I'm one of so few. You know?
And you can only reach so much.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what are some of the dangers of male masking?
I think the first and major danger of male masking is the tendency to bottle up
Yeah.
You know, anything you keep in your system for too long eventually becomes
Yeah.
poison.
Yes.
And so with male masking, a lot of your emotions, you suppress them. A lot of your feelings, you suppress them. A lot of your, even your perspective and thoughts on things, you eventually suppress them because it's not worth the argument. It's not worth the back and forth. And it's not worth the chance of being embarrassed. And so the number one danger of male masking is the imminent explosion. You know, we all have a breaking point.
Yes, we do.
And unfortunately, these days, a vast majority of suicides are men. I think the last statistic was like 60% of suicides are not just men, but teenage men between the ages of 14 and 24.
Wow.
And if you're looking at that age bracket of
that-
14 to 24, that's when you're trying to find your authentic self. So it literally is a cause and effect. Now, I'm no sociologist. I'm not the one doing the research, but I'm just looking from a top level down in terms of if men are the ones killing themselves and they're killing themselves at the time where it is supposed to be finding my authentic self, then there has to be a cause and effect. There has to be a relation there in men not feeling like they can be themselves or not knowing even what that is.
Which leads to my next question. How can parents contribute to their boys becoming men who are true to themselves? What does that look like, especially here in Jamaica where, it's,
The first thing I would say is we need to stop demonizing men. And I say that not in a general sense, but there's a number of specific situations that either we've been a part of, we know somebody who's been a part of, or we've witnessed it for ourselves, where mothers who have been hurt by their fathers or hurt by the father of their children speak ill of men to their children. So when they do that, they are speaking to their daughters that men aren't worth anything, and they're telling their sons they aren't worth anything. That it is almost and depending, because we can't tell a child how to process the information, that boy may very well see himself as not being worth it, or you're going to have identity crisis where he says, I don't want to be a man, I want to be a woman, because being a man is such a bad thing. So step one would be, do your best. No matter how upset you are, take that to your therapist, take that to your church, take that to your friends group, but don't have that conversation in and around your children because it's just bad
important.
programming. It's going to lead to problems.
Yeah.
The second thing would be a call out on our men. We need men to just try. We don't celebrate trying enough. If some of our men would just try, it would make a world of difference. The other day I went to a fast food chain here in Jamaica, and I had the time to count. There were 14 workers in the place, and all 14 were women. All 14. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing that women are stepping up, but I'm saying of a society that we're supposedly, the gender split across a society is supposedly 60% women, 40% men, or I think it's 55-45, then the workforce in most establishments should be split somewhere along that line as well. But most establishments is predominantly women. With university, I think the last statistic I heard was something like 75% of university graduates are women. So I want us to encourage our men to try.
Yeah.
They have a belief that if I try and fail, I'm not worth anything. But they have to know that trying and failing is the natural progression to success.
Yes.
So we have to teach and encourage our men to just try and celebrate that and support that. Nothing's wrong with correcting. Nothing's wrong with saying, okay, do it differently. But they have to be encouraged to at least try. And if I'd say there's a third element, it's that if you are a man and you are hearing this and this reaches you in some way, be the best role model you can be.
Yeah.
We discount how important it is to be a superhero. We make excuses to be human, I say, too quickly. We make excuses to give in to the pressures of society, the blame mask, which we spoke about, too quickly. And so I strongly believe that if the few men started today to step into the role of being a role model, a lot would begin to change, if even just in those small pockets and those small circles.
A lot said there, all spot on, I believe. Those statistics are interesting as you talk about women, or the women in the workspace versus the men in the workspace. Is it, why do you think that is?
I mean, I've sat in on a number of sociological presentations and different elements and factors. Some of the shocking ones, or the most shocking one that I came to learn about, I didn't grow up in the environment, so I wasn't exposed to it, was the fact that in a lot of low income housing, if a choice is made between children, very often the choice is made in favor of the daughter. Not saying that a lot of daughters are not exposed to all of the violence and all of the horrible things of the world, but in a lot of situations where a choice is made, the choice is the son gets taken out of school, he gets put to work in the street, to sell, to wipe glass, to beg, while the daughter, while those resources are there and channeled towards the daughter to then go to school. That's a huge one. I think another big example, and it comes back to media, who have been the role model of men in society. You know, unfortunately, not to say a man can't make a mistake. We all make mistakes.
Humans.
But unfortunately, you look at a Michael Jordan, sex scandal. A Tiger Woods, sex scandal. Most of our media and personalities, multiple women, multiple baby mothers, never really married, never really building relationships. And so the men who are successful and portrayed as successful in media tend to live very often, I hope the right word is vicarious lifestyles. And so our young men who don't have an immediate role model, they look to that to try and emulate it. So between what they're trying to achieve, which is multiple women, bling, attention, validation, and in another aspect, not being given the opportunity for growth, development, and really being told that your sister is more important than you. Those are two of the many factors that lead to it. Men not being taught how to process their emotions. We as Jamaicans, I would even go as far as to say Afro-Caribbean people, we are very emotional people. And our boys are not taught how to process that. Even, I think they said neurologically, men on average have 2 to 4 spaces in their brain to process emotion. They're large spaces, but it's only 2 to 4. Women have close to 40 of the same processing spaces. Hence why a woman can cry but keep washing the dishes, argument's sake. While if a man is upset, all he can be is be upset.
Yeah. Okay, I learned something today. As I think I've said this to Jeffrey on the show the last time he was on, I believe that we are change agents. We are here to change the world and be light in the world, in this world of some that can be dark sometimes. So I do applaud what you do, Jeffrey. Not just here at the bridge, but outside of that. I'm going to read a quick excerpt from Jeffrey's book. It's entitled Joshua's Journey, The Power of a Few Words. And it goes like this. You know, Jeffrey, no matter what role I've seen you in a lot of them. I've seen you in charge of systems. I've seen you in charge of operations. I've seen you hire. I've seen you train. I've seen you in just about every basic capacity business has to offer. And no matter what role you're placed in, you always end up encouraging people, motivating people, and teaching them a lot about who they could be if they were to tap into all that they were. Have you ever thought of being a motivational speaker? And this is an excerpt, as I said, from Jeffrey's book, Joshua's Journey, The Power of a Few Words, which I believe can be found on Amazon. Correct. And I'm not sure who said this to you, Jeffrey, but I've known Jeffrey now for what, 2 years?
At least
2 years. And spot on. If I ever tell you guys when Jeffrey came on the show the first time, what Bobby and I wanted him to come on the team to be for CGN. he's actually kind of doing without doing. But yes, innately he is someone that's going to motivate you. He's going to encourage you. He's going to pour into you, which is, I think, an absolutely amazing thing, especially in today's world where so many of us need it. Motivational speaking.
It's the book Joshua's Journey and Power of a Few Words for me encompasses the major changes in my life, and I think it encompasses the power I think everybody has. We discount how powerful language is, we discount how powerful communication is, and even here at the Bridge, what we're doing in radio, what we're doing in terms of putting these messages out there, and I think what each and every person has the capability of doing is enriching the lives of others, allowing them to be their authentic self, allowing them to take off the mask, letting them know it's okay, that you don't need to put on a show, that I will accept you for who you are, as you are. And I think if we would open up a little bit more, if we would share these kinds of words, a lot of the identity crisis and lack of clarity, I think we could really challenge a lot of it. I think we could solve a lot of it by just a few words.
Not just a few words.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey has these words, so please go on Amazon and get the books. Support our Caribbean, Jamaican authors, guys, on Amazon. Joshua's Journey. Jeffrey. also Jeffrey Joshua. Thank you for being on Chasing Purpose. As always, you know I love you, even though I want to wring your neck half the time.
I'm okay
but
with
it's a relationship that I value. I do. Thank you. So in closing, really quickly, guys, just listen to me, Bridge Nation. Our Creator intends for us not to merely survive or to live life on autopilot, but He created us to thrive. I ask you, are you ready to remove your mask? Are you ready to free yourself of everything that's holding you back? Are you ready to lean into vulnerability? Are you ready to put in the mind work, the heart work, and the soul work? If yes is your answer, then look no further than within yourself. You already have what it takes to put in the work, to shed that mask and step into your greatness. As always, we sow seeds others can benefit from, which we do here on Chasing Purpose. Have a great one. Bye.